Hi there, and welcome to an information session about First 10, Next 10. This is a project where we are looking for posters about contributions to the TRC recommendations. But before we get into the presentation, I would like to hand it over to my colleague Rachel Baraka, who's going to do a land acknowledgement.
Thanks, Sally. Hi, everybody. My name is Rachel Baraka. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a settler Canadian of European descendants. And I would like to acknowledge that we are doing this work at TMU on lands that are governed by the Dish with One Spoon Treaty, the Wampum Agreement, which was between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, that connected them and bound them together to look after the land and the waters and all of the living creatures in order to live in prosperity and live a good life. And it meant that they shared the bounty in that dish, and there was a spoon that everyone could have their piece of it without taking too much. There were no weapons at the table, no knife with the dish. So this is all about doing things in peace and doing things in friendship and respect. And, I've learned from Elder Joanne many things, one of them being that, we acknowledge the land settler people and the treaties that we're bound to because we've been welcomed into the Dish with One Spoon Treaty as a way to recognize our responsibilities and to give gratitude to the things that are good that we gain from being a part of being in relationship with other people and First Nations peoples, all Indigenous peoples, and with the land itself. So this is important for the presentation we're about to do because this activity, this endeavor, the First 10, Next 10 project is all about holding ourselves a little bit of accountable, well, a lot accountable actually, to the calls to action made from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's final report. And so we can be in good relationship with the First Peoples of these lands. I'll turn it back to Sally.
First of all, who we are. We are from the Orange Shirt Day and National Indigenous Peoples Day Planning Circle. Working on this particular initiative is Rachel Baraka, Manager of Strategic Initiatives at Student Affairs. I'm Sally Goldberg Powell. I'm a Teaching Resources and Technology Specialist at the Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching, and I'm also a contract lecturer for the School of Journalism. Also working with us is Sierra Lefebvre, who is not with us today. They're not available. They are the Indigenous Initiatives Project Assistant for TRSM, as well as the President of SAGE. And Kathleen Peets, who is the Associate Director, Academic Leadership, and Associate Professor for Early Childhood Studies. A little bit more about the Orange Shirt Day and National Indigenous Peoples Day Planning Circle. We are a collective of Indigenous and non-Indigenous colleagues that are working together, and we are led by Crystal Asawamik, who is the manager of Indigenous events and special projects. There are people from across the campus, and you can see a full list of groups that are involved in these planning circles or in events. In other words, we're a grassroots group of staff from across campus. And with that, I will pass it over to Rachel, who will go through more of the background.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so next slide, Kathleen. Thank you. Why the heck are we doing this? So 2025, unbelievably to me, I can't believe how fast time has gone, marks the 10th anniversary of when the Truth and Reconciliation Commission published its final report, which included the calls to action. So we want to commemorate that this fall. The first 10 is about what we have all done as a community to respond to the calls to action. And the next 10 is looking at what's been done and then saying, what is there to do next? What do we still need to do? What is the next steps of our journey towards truth and reconciliation? So this is a time to share, it's a time to celebrate, and it's a time to identify gaps as well. So how can you share? We've put this together so we can all share through digital posters. We did this because we see it as being a very manageable way of doing things, but still a dynamic way to submit information for all community members at TMU. We do have templates that you can use. There's no printing cost, so this is a good thing. We are going to leverage spaces that already exist on campus that have digital display capabilities. And then it's going to give us this ability to showcase in multiple ways at a variety of events and places. The other good part of this is that we can infuse accessibility into the design of the posters and where and how we display the information. And then it also means that we can easily preserve everything as digital assets to be shared after the events that we're at. I'm going to turn it over to Kathleen now.
Thank you, Rachel. So, as Sally introduced me, I am Kathleen Peets, and I'm a faculty member here at TMU in Early Childhood Studies. And I do want to speak to the tremendous benefits because I think there are multi layers of benefits to us as a community at TMU. And I think awareness, it's not only about celebrating the work that various different departments and units have undertaken. It's also sharing it with other units so that we can see how wonderful some of the work is that we may actually want to do in our own units or departments, or perhaps it could foster collaboration, awareness, and accountability, really, as Rachel was saying earlier. That also fosters learning through relationship and this really important set of opportunities to be able to share experiences with one another as a community. And once we know what we've done, we can plan for the next 10. And that's a big part of what we're talking about here, is really looking at the methodology that is being used here, the poster format. How does it work for sharing information, and what might else could we do with this toolkit and guide that will be generated as a result of this project? So how can you participate? The first step is all about having those conversations with your colleagues. So, depending on whether you're an academic unit or an administrative unit, or perhaps a student group, there might be different kinds of initiatives that you've undertaken that you want to discuss amongst yourselves that would be very helpful and valuable to share with the broader university community. And the other thing is we want to ensure that the things that we're brainstorming as individual units are really centered on the TRC. So what is meaningful about your own sector, your own profession, your own community? And we are really happy to invite you to share one or more than one posters or different areas reflected in different posters. But we do want to restrict it to a maximum of 3, just so that we can get as broad representation as possible within the university. You would be creating a poster, and it could be something that actually links to perhaps companion documentation, such as visual materials that you may have, or a website that you may have. And to do this, we do have templates. I believe Rachel already mentioned about the templates. And so the idea of the poster is not the same as a scientific poster that has a lot of detail. It's really more about being brief but descriptive, and then adding more detail in supplementary materials, such as a website, as I've mentioned, or perhaps a document. And that would include a QR code on the poster to provide a link to that supplementary material. So if you actually don't have anything, an existing website or more documentation, you can create a one-page summary. So we do have a deadline of August 27th to submit posters, and we wanted to let you know that the webpage has launched, and you can submit a draft, and there is a committee to review that draft and potentially suggest some revisions or require some minor changes. And then the display times are there. It would actually be for over a month that we would have screens on campus showing all of the posters. So now I'm going to pass it over to Sally to talk about these templates that we have available for your use.
Thanks, Kathleen. And so we've developed 4 different posters for you, so 4 different poster templates, each one centering around a different type of content you may have available to you along with this poster. For example, you may have a website, and this one of them offers you a space to have a screenshot of that website. Another one offers an opportunity to add a photo. A third one also offers an opportunity to add some sort of visuals, for example, illustrations or data visualizations, that kind of thing, so that you can share some, some results of what the impact has been of the project that you took on. And finally, we also have one that has none of those things, and that's because we don't want to encourage folks to come up with imagery that is not relevant. And often, if we were to do a Google search for Indigenous imagery, it can be very problematic, as you might know, and we don't want to encourage people to include images that are not actually supporting the work that you're doing, that are just there for an illustrative purpose, that don't actually respect the type of relationships that we have with folks on campus, but instead offer sort of a stereotypical or simplified or problematic vision of what Indigenous culture might be about. So we were trying to offer as many options to you as we can to ensure that we have respectful and informative and visually pleasing slides that could be, say, if they're in a slideshow where they're going by fairly quickly, people could still get all the information, or at least access those QR codes to get even more information about what you have been working on. So this way of doing the templates allows us to avoid those stereotypical inappropriate imagery. It also ensures that they're as accessible as possible. In a digital format, these will be easily read by a screen reader, for example. So this is just a closer look at the one that uses a screenshot from a website, but it gives you more of a sense of the types of information that you would want to have on the poster. For example, there is, of course, that QR code we mentioned before, and the idea is that would link to some supplemental information that gives a bit more context or provides a link to, say, the website. And of course, you can just create a Google Doc for this and then have the QR code. We also have provided instructions on how to create those QR codes if you're unfamiliar. Also on the right-hand side, you will see the opportunity to provide some key features. That really important part that's the what's next part of this, and that's sort of thinking about what you'll do to continue this initiative, what else could be done, that kind of thing. And then the names of collaborators, or perhaps the group that has collaborated, it could be the name of a group. That's just a way if people are really intrigued by your story and what you're working on to see who they could talk to about it and to learn more about it and see if there's opportunities to collaborate across units, for example. Also notice how the text in brightly colored part of this slide is big, bold, and clear and descriptive. So the idea here is to write something that would be easily absorbed by people, to bring in their attention and get them to engage with the poster. So finally, we just wanted to wrap up by giving you a reminder of what exactly we're hoping to accomplish through this process. We want it to be more than just a way to showcase the work of our community. We want it to be a way to foster some lasting learning, but not only learning, but action as well. So even though we've all hopefully been involved in some way or another in meeting the recommendations of the TRC report, there's likely a lot more that we can do. And so the idea here is that we're going to continue that action towards reconciliation and figure out how we can continue to work for a better way forward. So thank you so much for participating and your interest. I wish you the best of luck with all your posters.